Why did so many horror franchises suddenly go 3D in the early 80s? Welcome to Creepin' It Real. Thanks for joining me. I am Judah. We're going to be talking about the phenomenon of 3D, specifically within the realm of horror and the third installment. So in 1983, Amityville, which couldn't be acknowledged as a sequel to the previous two movies, came out. They were really lacking in any new ideas, which is clear because they were fully resting on the gimmick of 3D, and they followed in the footsteps of such great franchises as Friday the 13th 3D and Jaws 3D. So now we have Amityville 3D. And that literally just screams, we have no more ideas, but we still want your money. There was a little bit of a legal dispute because Amityville supposedly is based off of a true story. In the third one, since there was these legal issues, almost presented as a, hey, this isn't connected to Amityville. When they did release this, because it was 3D in the cinema, they put the title Amityville 3D. It became confusing for some people, and there was complaints. Like some people thought that it was the original Amityville horror from the 70s re-released in 3D, and some people complained because they thought it would be in 3D, which it was not. So in further releases, it was called Amityville the Demon, which, speaking of the demon, that is exactly why I watched this movie. This image right here is why I checked this out. I have no experience with the Amityville franchise, but I saw this clip and I was like, oh my gosh, this might be one of those hidden gems that has practical effects that really save the movie. So I eagerly seek this out. You know, I type it into Roku, find out where it's playing. I look it up, I watch it. It starts off two reporters that are trying to debunk or expose these two fraudulent people who do seances and stuff. This reporter and the photographer are posing as a husband and wife who recently lost their child. They're doing the seance. And in the middle of the seance, the woman who's acting like the wife busts out a camera and starts taking photos, exposing all of the shenanigans that are going on. There's a guy that's dressed in full black that's holding a pole that's making some kind of a glowing cloud. You know, these two fraudsters were trying to say that because this was the house that these horrible things happened and that it made the channeling of the spirits way easier, something along those lines. This is where we get introduced to this guy, a doctor of some sorts, who looks like he literally graduated from high school yesterday. He has something to do with paranormal research. He connected these two reporters to this story and kind of gave them the in. The male reporter is in the midst of a separation from his wife. He's looking for a place to stay. And they literally just got the people kicked out of this house. The guy who takes care of it, the realtor or whatever you want to call him, kind of says, you know, I can't get rid of this place. I got it listed as a super good price. I was just like, look, we got this lake back here. There's all this beautiful land. He's like, but nobody will take it because of the story behind it. And this reporter doesn't buy into any of the supernatural stuff. So he's like, well, what are you looking to, get rid of it for? And the guy's like, super affordable. So this reporter ends up purchasing this house. This character is based off of a real life reporter that was trying to expose what he felt was fraudulence from what is the true story that is Amityville horror is based around. So this guy, he purchases this house. He has an older teen daughter, and he basically goes back to his wife and he's like, hey, I got this place. I'm going to be moving out. There's no reason for us to keep messing with this ups and downs. We're both unhappy. I'm just going to move out. The photographer reporter that went with him, she doesn't believe in it either, but she's also seeing some weird stuff going on at this place. Like when they went back and were meeting with the realtor or the property manager, whatever you want to call him, she was taking photos. And when she developed them, everybody in the photos were fine, except for this property manager. He always looked like he was dead and decaying. And she checks out all of her equipment and she's like, why is it just him? She starts telling this guy, John, who was the male reporter, I really don't think you should be living here. And he's like, we both know this is fake. We literally just exposed them 2 days ago. There's nothing going on here. And she's like, yeah, but how do you explain the camera? And he's like, I don't know. There's dirt on your lens, but there's nothing going on here. All this leads to somewhat of a very boring movie. His daughter comes there. The The wife is very like, I don't like you hanging out there. She goes to see this paranormal investigator. For some reason, she thinks that he has some kind of say, talking to him about the plight of the marriage, and also how she doesn't like the fact that her daughter is in that house. And he's basically like, and I'm thinking, what, who is this man to you? And why is this wife going to this teenager, this paranormal investigator, and asking him advice about this? And he basically goes, What's even weirder is later on, then John, the husband, comes to him, or family advice. And once again, he's like, meh. It's so weird how they put this paranormal research doctor into the story simply so that they can get him at the end of the story where they need him. Weird stuff is going on. Did I mention this movie is in 3D? Because that does not propel the story at all. In fact, it's usually only used for some of the dumbest crap ever that does not push the story forward. Hey, look, here's some kids throwing a Frisbee. Oh no, look out, the Frisbee's coming through the screen. 3D. The mom says to the daughter, who, by the way, is Aunt Becky from Full House. Lori something, don't know her last name. And side note, dude, I had a major crush on Aunt Becky, man. She's a teen in this. Also with a very young Meg Ryan, who I felt had the best acting, in my opinion, in this movie. Aunt Becky, whose name is Susan in this, she's hanging out with Meg Ryan and their boyfriends. And they're all like, come on, let's go to the house. We heard about all the crazy stuff. And she's like, no, my mom said no. Meg Ryan's like, come on, Susan. Your dad's not there. We'll just go check it out and we'll be gone. Nothing will ever happen. They go there, and for some reason, they're like, I know, let's make a homemade Ouija board and let's start messing with stuff. They're asking it some questions. Then they ask a question, is anybody in this room in danger? And it says Susan is in danger. And Susan's just like, okay, I've had enough of this. They leave the house, and one of the boyfriends sees her dad's motorboat. And he's like, hey, let's go ride around. And they're like, cool. So they get in, and a freak accident happens. Susan, Aunt Becky, falls in the water and drowns. They're pulling her body out of the water. John is out there, crying over his dead daughter. His estranged wife comes up, doesn't know what's going on out there. She walks into the house because she has a feeling that Susan went there, even though she told her to keep her ass out of that house. She's calling for people. Then a soaking wet Susan walks through the front door. And the mom's like, Susan, why are you all wet? Susan, didn't I tell you not to come here? Susan, following her all the way upstairs, where she locks herself in her room. And she's banging on the door, Susan. Then John comes running in, grabs his estranged wife, and he's like, I got horrible news for you. A horrible accident. He takes her out back, shows her the drowned Susan laying on the ground, and she's like, this isn't funny, John. I just saw Susan inside. And he's like, no, Susan's right here. So this creates this weird kind of scenario where John thinks his wife is freaking out. She knows what she saw, and she kind of refuses to leave the house because she goes back in and she's opening all the rooms. And she's like, I swear, John, she was in here. I swear it. John falls asleep because it's, the grief and everything. He wakes up in the morning, goes in the kitchen, sees his wife ironing Susan's clothes, but she's doing it in the kitchen, and the kitchen is just freaking torn apart. And John's like, what happened in here? And she's like, Susan wanted to let us all know that she's still here. And he's like, look, Susan is dead. You got to stop hanging on to this. And she's like, no, she's not. And that's why I'm getting her clothes ready as she's ironing her clothes. Okay. At this point, then John goes back to this all-knowing, high school student, this a paranormal investigator, explaining the situation. And he says, John, you got to do something for me. You got to let me get in there, and I will record. I'll bring my equipment. We'll see if she's actually seeing something, or we'll see if she's crazy and we need to lock her up. Now, what's funny to me is in most movies, and I don't know what it is in real life, I would assume that what most movies show is closer to real life. When you have paranormal investigators, they're not generally well funded, and they're usually a small team because it's not like a mass belief thing, and you can't make a whole lot of money off of this kind of a spiel. And so you're expecting, after John says, okay, fine, that this dude shows up with this small, 2 or 3 team, set up some cameras. They sit there, almost like the whole poltergeist thing. But no, this guy comes with like a team of, I counted and as they would show each room, I would count how many people were in each room. And I counted a total of 14. Now that does not mean I counted everybody in his team, but this is his whole team that he brings. 14 freaking people. So many people, there's almost not enough room in this house to keep them all. 14 people is all just to show off the 3D effects of the movie, because you got guys carrying around boom mics and stuff. And of course, they're going to take an advantage of that. Look at the boom mic. Here comes the boom mic. Watch out, the boom mic. So this is really goofy. Then suddenly this apparition comes to the wife as Susan, using Susan's voice. And they can all see it. And John wants to run up there right away. But, the high schooler is all like, no, stop. Let's see where this goes. So this apparition is leading the wife from all the way upstairs, all the way downstairs to the basement, where there is this old well that's dry and just has a couple boards sitting on top of it. Then the high schooler paranormal investigator says to John, you know what? I have an idea. It looks like it's leading her into the basement. And oh my gosh, now this dry well is full of water up to the top, glowing water. He's like, I have an idea. I think we can save your daughter, Susan. So they follow the wife and the apparition down. The professor, the doctor, this high school, we're going to call him Doogie Howser. Doogie Howser tells John, get your wife. So he grabs her and she's like, no, stop it. I gotta save Susan. And Doogie gets down into the well as it's boiling. And he's all like, show yourself. Real power and authority there, Doogie. And this demon pops up out of the well, breathes fire on him, and then grabs him and yanks him into the well. Now, this is the thing I've been waiting for through this whole freaking movie. This is why I watched this movie. And this demon is on the screen for like less than a minute. And it's at the end of the freaking movie. It was such a bummer to me. Now, granted, it was fun for that 1 minute, but it was not worth all the shit 3D I had to sit through to get there. Now, yes, this wasn't true 3D, but you could see how all the shots were set up to, really take advantage of this gimmick. So he's being pulled in, his face is half burnt, and you see this thing floating up above, and he yells, save yourself, Susan, as he gets yanked in. And then like all hell breaks loose and things are exploding. Furniture is getting tossed all over the place. These poor 14 students, they're probably all just, helping to get some kind of credit or something in college. They're getting chucked out windows. They're getting freaking sofas thrown at them. I mean, they are getting the heck beat out of them. The spirit, this demon, won't allow windows or doors to open. John goes up there with his wife and he finally bust open a door or something, and they escape. You see maybe one or two other of these people out there that escape, and then the whole house just freaking explodes. So that team, other than maybe two, they all die. They all die, except for a couple of them and the husband and wife. Now that whole thing that Doogie was all like, save yourself, Susan, that goes nowhere because the movie ends. The house is completely obliterated. The husband and wife are just standing there watching it. And then you have the camera pan into the house and down into the basement where the well is still there, still filled to the top, still glowing and bubbling. And then this fly, which I forgot to mention, flies throughout the whole movie. This fly right in the center of the screen. Don't forget we're 3D. End of the movie. Did I enjoy this? I did not. Is it the worst movie I've ever seen? It is not. But it was fully resting on the gimmick of 3D because it had nothing left to say after the first two movies. And that is why, in my humble opinion, that a lot of these horror franchises jumped on the bandwagon and they're like, oh, this is the third installment. Let's call it Friday the 13th. 3D. Get it? 3D, because it's the third movie, but it's in 3D. We got nothing to say. We want your money. That's how this goes. Where am I going to land? Well, Aunt Becky was in it, and the demon did show up, even though like only at the end and only for like less than a minute. And I did enjoy that brief moment, but I'm thinking I can only go with a 3 out of 10. Even though Aunt Becky still is super hot, I can only give it a 3 out of 10. First, I want to thank you if you made it this far. You are a champ. You get a gold star. What is your favorite throwaway 3D movie? I want to know. And you can even talk about modern movies. I'm looking at you, Avatar. I've actually never seen any of the Avatar movies. The only 3D movie I've actually seen in the cinema to where I got to wear the glasses was Spy Kids 3D. And I gotta admit, most of the movie, I just sat there with the glasses off watching a blurry screen. So I guess by default, Spy Kids 3D would be my favorite 3D movie. Thanks for sticking with me. I am Judah. This has been Creepin' It Real, and I'll see you later.